Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. The Russian Navy is attempting to annex or exert control over an area of the Bulgarian economic zone within NATO waters in the Black Sea today after a statement came out that Bulgaria is currently consulting with its NATO allies to figure out a response to this current development. According to information that came out from the Kyiv Post earlier today, apparently the Russians are attempting to conduct military exercises in the area, and because of this, they have shut down a part of Bulgaria's NATO waters to conduct these exercises. The Bulgarian Defense Minister, Todor Tagarev, has declared this a provocation, and currently Bulgaria is trying to figure out further steps to work out with NATO to find out what they are going to be doing against this provocation. This is the first time ever within NATO history that we have seen the Russians directly attempt to exert influence within the realm of NATO territorial waters, and this certainly may not be the last attempt as well. Currently, there is a naval operation, a naval exercise being conducted by a joint Romanian, US, and Bulgarian naval force in the area of the Danube River Delta, and currently we do not hear that they are going to be making any response to this attempted provocation by the Russians to shut down and exert control over NATO waters within the Black Sea. However, this is something that we will most likely expect a response to. It is far more serious, at least maritime-wise, than anything that we have seen so far being conducted within the Black Sea against NATO, and most likely will create some kind of a serious NATO response to this Russian provocation of directly trying to exert influence over sovereign waters of a NATO ally. Speaking of which, Russian drones have continued to explode on the southern side of the Danube River as more Russian drones have been targeting the ports of Izmail and Renai, which are directly along the entire length of the Danube River Delta. Because of this, many of these drones have been landing inside of Romania and exploding on NATO territory once more. The Romanian response has been considerably low-key, given the current situation. But we have seen that Romania is starting to respond more forcefully now than they have been in the past. Just yesterday, they announced that Romanian air defense systems were going to be moved into the area, so that way they could attempt to shoot down the drones before they land and explode onto Romanian territory. At the same time today, the Romanian government is actually summoning Russian ambassadors from the embassy in Bucharest to discuss the new drone debris that was found on its territory just last night after another Russian drone missed its target or was shot down, leading to its inevitable crash within the area of the port of Renai on the southern side of the river within Romanian territory. Once again, another continuation of serious developments with Russia, and it does appear that at this point, the Russians are certainly going out of their way to try and create provocations with Western governments, specifically ones that are NATO aligned. While they may be attempting to do that, it does appear that the situation inside of the Russian Federation is also getting quite tense as well, as they are also expelling US diplomats today. The United States made a statement about this, saying that their expulsion of their diplomats is unprovoked, and the United States will retaliate in some form in the future. It does appear, certainly, that diplomatic ties are beginning to break down with the Russians, and it also appears that the Russians are attempting to exacerbate the issue and create further escalations in violence amongst the two sides. Moving on from the news of the Russian Federation and their actions against the West, while they are trying to exert naval influence in the Black Sea, they are losing just that. The Russians' ability to exert naval influence or power project in this area is greatly diminished day by day at this point after a video came out showing the results of the attack that occurred just a day ago on the port city of Sevastopol, showing that the Minsk has practically been destroyed. The entirety of the superstructure is gone, and a good bit of the hull also appears to have taken considerable fire damage. From what we understand, the damage doesn't appear to have burned through the hull. The metal in the hull can be burned through if the fire is hot enough, but nevertheless, it appears that the hull is somewhat intact. We don't know exactly how extensive the fire damage is to the Minsk landing ship that we're seeing right here, but nevertheless, we are assuming that this ship is going to be a total write-off. The refits would be prohibitively expensive for quite an old ship, and for that reason, we would probably assume that the Russians will not be refitting this ship, and it will join the graveyard of other Russian ships that have so far been attacked and damaged beyond repair. It, of course, is also joining the Kilo-class submarine, the Rostov-on-Don, which was in the dry dock adjacent to the Minsk landing ship, and most likely will never see the light of day either. The fire damage caused to the submarine was serious enough that, according to reports, it has been completely destroyed, with the Russian Federation even confirming that today. The Ukrainians, while destroying Russian assets within the dry docks at Sevastopol, it appears that they're also attacking Russian ships at sea. Both of Russia's most advanced corvettes, the Sergei Kotov and the Vasily Baikov, ended up being attacked today by Ukrainian forces. According to Visegrad 24, the official Russian statement is that the Sergei Kotov was actually able to destroy all drones that were targeting it today, but according to Ukrainian reports, the Ukrainians were not only able to hit the Vasily Baikov, but also damage the Sergei Kotov as well. At the moment, we don't know which report is true. We usually lean into believing the Ukrainian statement more than the Russian statement, but with naval warfare, it is really up in the air. It's kind of a toss-up. We don't really know if the Ukrainians are correct in saying that both ships have been damaged, or if the Russians were able to stop most drones from hitting the Sergei Kotov. Regardless, it does appear that both of Russia's 22-160 class patrol ships may have been damaged today in attacks by Ukrainian forces, which is further crippling their already weakened Black Sea fleet and the very little amount of influence or power projection that it brings into the Black Sea area at this point. It is truly impressive to know that the Ukrainians are able to target the Russian Navy and attack them quite successfully, considering that a surface fleet or even a submarine fleet of the Ukrainian Navy is practically non-existent in this moment, and we are not really seeing any major developments in that direction as far as Ukraine building a navy. It's most likely going to be impossible throughout most of the war, and so the Ukrainians have found a new and unconventional, unorthodox way to attack the Russian Navy, which is by every other means rather than ship or submarine. It appears to be wildly successful as well with the kind of results that they've been able to achieve with these kinds of attacks, and we're hoping that they will be able to continue to gain these kinds of successes and victories over the Russian Navy as they continue to attempt to weaken them and destroy them. This is also part of a larger Ukrainian plan to ensure that the Russian Navy is so considerably weakened that it will not pose a threat to domestic shipping heading to Ukraine that may be bringing vital war supplies, and not only that, it may also be delivering vital grains and foodstuffs from Ukraine to other nations around the world through the Grain from Ukraine deal. The Russians backed out of that deal several months ago and appear to have shown no sign of wanting to re-enter it, and so now it appears that the Ukrainians are taking the matter into their own hands to ensure that the Russians have no way to get in the, to stop that kind of deal with the rest of the world. One thing that's very interesting about that deal as well is that it mostly benefits the People's Republic of China and also Saudi Arabia, being two of the largest grain importers of Ukrainian grains, meaning that the two countries that the Russians probably have a little bit more to do with than anywhere else in the world were both some large benefactors of the Ukrainian grain shipments. The lack of Ukrainian grain in both of those markets has led to a somewhat small rise in prices for both the Saudis and the Chinese due to the lack of the grains, but nevertheless it does appear that the Chinese and Saudi Arabians have not really pushed the issue too hard because the Russians still show no signs of wanting to re-enter the deal. At the same time that everything is going on at sea, we also got to hear a little bit more about the explosions that occurred at Yevpatoria last night. We saw that there were some explosions near a military base in the city of Yevpatoria, and we can see one of those right here on film. And with that, that's the end of that clip showing the explosion. But moving on from that and into the news that we got today, we were able to confirm that an S400 system was destroyed due to that attack last night. And according to OSINT Technical, he has been able to confirm that Ukrainian forces successfully hit the S400 battery this morning, destroying at least one TEL and a support vehicle. This is fairly significant news. S400 systems are incredibly expensive, and there are not that many of them when you divide them up into actual operational batteries. There is a limited number of S-400s out there in the world, and especially for the Russian army. The loss of one of these systems is not only incredibly expensive and greatly decreasing the ability of the Russian Federation to intercept air targets, but it's also something that may be seriously crippling the Black Sea fleet, as there now may be a possible new air corridor for Ukrainian drones and Ukrainian weaponry to reach the Black Sea with to be able to attack the ships further. We also saw an additional video coming out in the morning hours over the city of Yevpatoryka, where we saw that a Ukrainian Mugen 5 was flying over a Khrushchevka block right there. We hear it flying on over, sounding like a lawnmower. But nevertheless, very interesting to see that apparently Russian air defense is completely useless in this area, and the S400 was not able to detect any of these drones either, not even all the way up until its very demise, which we saw on film last night at Yevpatoryka, and we got confirmation of its destruction today. It does appear that the Ukrainians are largely starting to achieve some kind of a soft air supremacy while not being able to operate their larger aircraft such as the MiG-29, Su-27s, and Su-24s. They have been able to operate their drones with relative ease throughout Russian-occupied territory and within the Russian Federation without receiving large amounts of ground fire or having a large amount of their drone forces attrited before their attacks are successful. This is showing that Russian air defenses are continue to be dwindled down to inconsiderable sizes due to Ukrainian attacks and also the withdrawal of air defenses from the front lines into other areas of Russia, for example Moscow, to try and further the air defenses and their abilities around the metropolitan city. Moving on from that, we also got really big news today that apparently President Zelensky will be making another visit to the United States of America. According to a statement from the Spectator Index, the United States president is going to host Ukraine's President Zelensky at the White House next week. This will be Zelensky's second visit to the United States since the start of the war, and hopefully we will see that it will bring promising results for the Ukrainians and show that the United States is continuing to support their cause and the war effort. But with that, that is all of the major news that we had today. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for watching. If y'all did enjoy, please make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and comment down below because all of that, of course, helps the channel to be boosted in the algorithms. Also, make sure to support us on Patreon, link in the description below, because supporting us on Patreon helps to make these videos possible. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.